When you say doxed, there is fear of public sharing of your name and possibly targeting.
Absolutely.
By who?
Doge members, including Elon Musk.
As it pertains to Democrats, Democrats have had every opportunity to come to the table to offer a solution to cutting government spending. Once upon a time, they actually believed in that. Instead, all I have heard is whining, complaining about what Trump is doing, what Elon Musk is doing. The American people every single month, Dan, has to balance their budgets. They have to see how much money they can afford to pay for certain things and how much they have to cut back. Why shouldn't the federal government do the same? You would think that my Democratic friends would agree with that.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Black Coffee Podcast. Today, we are not just skimming the surface, we're diving deep into the political chaos that's been unfolding. The talking heads on TV, the media pundits, and the politicians all seem to be in a frenzy, and it's our job to sift through the noise. We'll be talking about the recent meltdown surrounding Donald Trump, specifically his administration's actions regarding government spending, and the hypocrisy that seems to follow wherever he goes. Get ready, because this is going to be an eye-opening discussion. All right.
Sunday. And here's a reminder that Donald Trump has done pretty much nothing to lower your grocery costs. Remember, during Donald Trump's campaign, he repeatedly promised to lower food prices immediately. He said on day one. But here we are, way past day one.
Trump is like the 80-20 president. He gets on the right side of all these 80-20 issues. Democrats knee-jerk and take the 20. And then what happens? Today, CBS News poll this morning, Donald Trump sitting at a 53% approval rating, the highest he's ever recorded in that survey. Why? Because Democrats are taking the wrong side of all of these obvious issues, number one. And number two, they're giving him an enormous amount of latitude to move fast and break things.
All right, let's get right into it. The headline that's been impossible to ignore is new CNN MSNBC meltdown moments of getting mad at Donald Trump and exposing spending. This isn't just about Trump's return, it's about the establishment's reaction to his aggressive approach to government operations. We're talking about the media, Democrats, and the whole left-leaning machine. They're not just upset. They are throwing a full-blown tantrum, and we need to ask ourselves why. It's not just the fact that Trump is back in office, but it's how he's targeting what many consider sacred cows like FEMA, the Department of Education, and even the Pentagon that is making them lose their minds.
We are witnessing is a constitutional crisis. We are seeing an executive branch that has decided that they are no longer going to abide by the Constitution in honoring Congress's role in the creation of the agencies, in their role in deciding where money is allocated.
They get billions and billions of dollars, and they use that money to then infiltrate corporate America, to then infiltrate the public sector, to then resettle, for example, at taxpayer expense, millions of illegal aliens into this country. And so what we've learned is that the left's, this mammoth left-wing power structure, plus left-wing media, wasn't organic. It wasn't created naturally. It was funded by taxpayer dollars.
Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The hypocrisy. The level of selective outrage from the left is not only astounding, but frankly, insulting. These are the same people who are either silent or supportive of similar actions under previous administrations. Now, suddenly, they're all about fiscal responsibility. The hypocrisy is so blatant that it feels like a masterclass in political theater. It's not about the issues, it's about who is doing it, which is completely unacceptable. The convenient. Amnesia. The media seems to suffer from a convenient form of amnesia. When their preferred party is in charge, they either downplay or completely ignore issues like government overspending and the lack of transparency. However, the minute Trump challenges the system, they are suddenly screaming bloody murder. This is not about facts. It's about narrative control. Ignoring substantive issues. Instead of focusing on the substantive issues at hand, they are obsessed with criticizing Trump's personality and behavior.
Suggestion that he shut down FEMA entirely. Can and should Donald Trump shut it down?
He can, and I believe that he will do that evaluation with his team, and he's talking about it, which I'm grateful for. He'll work with Congress, though, to make sure that it's done correctly and that we're still there to help folks who have a terrible disaster or crisis in their life. He's been very clear that he still believes there's a role for the federal government to come in and help people get back up on their feet. But there's a lot of fraud and waste and abuse out there. And since President Trump has taken over and come back into this administration, we've seen incredible changes.
What's your
at FEMA
recommendation?
already.
Are we really going to pretend that the agencies Trump is scrutinizing were models of efficiency before he came along? Are we going to ignore the waste and fraud that have been allowed to fester under previous administrations? These are the questions we should be asking, but the media is too busy trying to score political points. The us versus them mentality.
That I and the local county emergency management directors, the mayors, the city councils, and the county commissioners, they made way better decisions than the people in Washington, D.C.
If the president came to you and said, "You're my DHS secretary, do you think I should get rid of FEMA?" Excuse me, get rid of FEMA, what would you say?
I would say yes, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today. We still need the resources and the funds and the finances to go to people that have these types of disasters like Hurricane Helene and the fires in California. But you need to let the local officials make the decisions on how that is deployed so it can be deployed much quicker, and we don't need this bureaucracy that's picking and choosing.
It's like a sports game for them. If you don't agree with their viewpoint, you are automatically the enemy. Truth is, many people are concerned about what's happening in our government regardless of party affiliation. The media's tribalism only serves to divide and distract us from the real problems that affect everyone. This is an us versus them political ideology, and it's completely unproductive.
He is acting on behalf of himself, and I think people should be very scared about that.
You're terrified that the FBI might have the internet? I mean,
I'm terrified.
I don't
I'm terrified that
understand.
the FBI, I'm terrified. No, I'm terrified that Elon Musk is putting people in federal agencies to figure out business opportunities for him.
I think
and
it's
you know
overblown.
that's true,
This
Scott.
is the richest man in the world. This man,
That's concerning.
And he's like sleeping on on the floor of a
That's his
government office
MO.
building
That's what
7
he
days
does
a
when he
week
breaks
in
all
order
of
to
this.
in order to help this government.
Let's get specific and tackle the FEMA situation. Elon Musk, love him or hate him, has shined a spotlight on some truly questionable spending practices. He exposed that FEMA was using taxpayer money to house illegal migrants in luxury hotels. This is not about the immigration debate. It's about how our tax dollars are being spent. It's about accountability and about how federal agencies can seemingly operate without any oversight. Where were the so-called watchdogs before this? The absurdity of the spending. The fact that millions of dollars are being used to pay for luxury hotels for migrants while American citizens are struggling is beyond comprehension. It's not just wasteful. It's a slap in the face to every taxpayer who has to balance their own budget. The Democrats and the media are now trying to deflect from the issue rather than admit the misuse of funds. Local control versus federal overreach. This whole situation brings up the discussion of local control versus federal overreach. The source material even touches on the fact that local officials are often more effective in handling emergencies than those in Washington, D.C. It's not about completely abandoning federal aid, but about making the system more responsive to real-world needs. We should be streamlining the process and putting decision-making in the hands of those who know the local communities best. Transparency and accountability. It's amazing to see people like Elon Musk putting in the effort to expose this fraud. The fact that he's reportedly sleeping in a government building just to find out where our tax dollars are going underscores how serious this is. This highlights the need for radical transparency. We need to stop relying on the mainstream media to do the work for us and start demanding accountability from our government. The audit of the Pentagon is also something to keep an eye on. It has failed multiple audits.
The spending is interesting. We're not going to balance the budget based on these spending cuts, although some of this stuff is patently, objectively ridiculous. And when I see Democrats rushing out to defend some of the things that he's cutting, I mean, it makes the Democratic Party sink to very low levels. But what I see him actually doing, and the most important thing he's doing, is enforcing the doctrine of common sense. This was the doctrine that Trump laid out in his inaugural address. What is the ideology of the Republican Party right now? It is best described as enforcement of common sense. We have uncommon nonsense on the left, and we have common sense. And when you look at what the government is doing, agency after agency, and spending some of our money, we're not going to balance it on a $79,000 grant here or there, but we are going to restore common sense, and that's the point.
Next, let's talk about the Department of Education. Trump's attempt to abolish the department has sparked outrage on the left. However, is it really that radical to question the effectiveness and necessity of a massive federal department that has been operating mostly unchecked? I'm not saying getting rid of the department is the solution. but it should make us pause and question whether it is truly serving its intended purpose. Challenging the status quo, the left and the media are trying to paint this as some kind of attack on education, but that's a mischaracterization.
If Republicans were serious about balancing the budget, then they should put forward a tax package that doesn't explode the deficit. So if we want to have that conversation, we can have it.
Democrats
because
have balanced the budget
because
after 4 years
that is
of
just
being in
not
power.
where the Republicans are.
You're for higher taxes.
But I think that
you want to continue.
I'm for a tax code that doesn't explode the deficit and actually benefits working people and business and not just the richest people. Like, by the way,
let the Trump tax cuts expire?
like Elon Musk.
You
By the
wanna
way,
let the Trump
We're working
I think-
people benefiting
but I also
after
think-
4 years of Biden and Harris? Absolutely not.
Next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today, Democratic members of Congress were blocked from entering the department's headquarters. Democratic lawmakers had met outside to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk's plan to abolish the department entirely, as well as attempting to seek a meeting with the department's senior leadership. Lawmakers were not only blocked by security holding the front door.
It's about questioning the status quo. Just because something has always been a certain way doesn't mean it's the most effective way. We need to be open to having conversations about how we can better serve our students and our communities. The taxpayer burden. The fact is that taxpayers are footing the bill for all of this. So shouldn't we be able to question what we are getting in return? If we spend $1, we should know where it goes. That's basic accountability. The government's resistance to transparency is a huge red flag. It makes me wonder what else. They are hiding. It is fascinating to see Trump's approval ratings actually climbing. This isn't a coincidence. He's tapping into the frustration that so many Americans feel about the way things are being run. His message of common sense resonates with a lot of people. They're tired of government waste. They're tired of bureaucratic red tape, and they're tired of politicians talking down to them. The appeal of common sense, the idea of applying our common sense to the way our government operates, is not revolutionary. It's actually quite logical.
Attention on board. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please direct your attention out the right side of the aircraft. Air Force One is currently in international waters, for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, he did that well. Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go.
Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose
Then
these
please
pieces for a
educate
moment.
me on
Sure.
what
So an
the
audit is
difference
exactly what you just described,
Yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there. So
what is
now
it
it's a
suggestive
question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So, in my world,
Yeah.
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means
People are tired of complicated rules, bureaucratic jargon, and wasteful spending. They want a government that works for them, not against them. The disconnect. The media and the Democrats are completely out of touch with how most Americans think and feel. They are living in their own echo chambers and are completely tone deaf. To the frustrations of regular people, their inability to understand Trump's popularity shows just how disconnected they are. Let's be real. The left is not as honest as they claim to be. They posture as the guardians of fiscal responsibility when it suits them, and conveniently turn a blind eye when their own party is in charge. They are masters at crafting narratives that benefit their side, regardless of what the facts are. It's time we see through this manipulation and hold them accountable for their actions. The real issues. It's not about whether you like Trump or not. It's about the bigger issues of government spending, transparency, and accountability. It's about making sure that our elected officials are serving the public interest and not special interest groups. We need to stop focusing on personality and start focusing on facts. A call for critical thinking. We need to learn to think critically and not let ourselves get caught up in partisan tribalism. We need to demand that everyone in power is accountable, regardless of their party. It's time to reject the narratives they are trying to feed us and start demanding change. We need to be part of the process and hold them accountable. That's all the time we have for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with everyone you know. We need to keep having these hard conversations and stay informed. Until next time, stay critical and stay engaged.